Materials. It's David McGillivray here with another edition of Little Did You Know. It's a chat show in which I talk to people I find interesting. I hope you agree. Now, if you saw last week's episode, you may remember David Del Valle, whose finest hour came when he interviewed in depth his idol, Vincent Price. And we talked about this. And I mentioned my guest this week. And of course, David knows him because my guest is the curator of Vincent Price Legacy UK. It's a gorgeous looking website. Not only that, but he's got a book coming out later this month. And any minute now, he's going to hold it up. But before he does that, I want to mention as well something else we're going to be talking about in this show. And that's he's an adventurer, and periodically he goes off and looks at places that have me green with envy. Will you please say hello to the very wonderful Peter Fuller?
Hey, How are you all? Thank you, David.
You're extremely welcome, Peter. As I threatened, you're going to hold a book up. Why don't you hold it up right now?
Look, everyone. Supper with the Stars, a brand new cookbook.
Which is
with your host, Vincent Price.
Officially launched October 25. Peter, tell us, what is in this book, please?
52 recipes from some legendary Hollywood celebrities and British greats, paired with 52 recipes from Vincent's own kitchen.
How on earth did you put all this together, Peter?
Well, I must admit, as I did this during the pandemic. I was made redundant, and I had this great idea, which I've been working on with my friend Jenny Hammerton, who's my co-author.
Yes, let's just give her a credit there.
Yeah, Jenny's the curator of the Silver Screen Suppers. And she...
So what's that, Peter? Silver Screen Suppers?
It's a website devoted to looking back at Hollywood recipes from the golden years. Mm-hmm. And how the book came out is that I was over at Jenny's one day, back in 2015 it was, and she has a collection of over 7,000 recipes of Hollywood celebrities over the years, from the 30s all the way through to the 90s. And I noticed that a lot of them had worked with Vincent. And I thought to myself, hey, this is a great idea for a cookbook. Why don't we get all of these old recipes, and we can actually then look back at Vincent's film career over 50 years and select 52 recipes, which means you can do one a week for a year. And we paired them with Vincent's recipes from his iconic cookbooks.
Well, I've just had a fantastic idea, Peter.
What's that?
Why don't we prepare a recipe from your book on the show?
That's a great idea.
Shall we pretend we didn't plan this?
We shall pretend.
And then we'll pop into the kitchen. We'll keep it as a surprise what we're going to come out with, but we'll put the recipe later on the YouTube page, on the Little Did You Know page, and everybody can then prepare it themselves.
What a great idea.
Oh, I'm glad you agree, Peter. We ought to talk about can we use the word infatuation with Vincent Price?
Well, he's been my mentor.
In what way? What have you learned from him?
Well, as well as being a iconic screen villain, he has also been noted for the fact that he's like a Renaissance man.
That was the word I was going to use.
He's very erudite. He's basically, his real job was actually working in the visual arts, and it's through him and his visual arts, his passion for the visual arts and his passion for travel, that has really inspired me over the years. And I found that I'm sort of following in his footsteps that way.
Well, we're going to be talking about Vincent Price a lot while we're preparing and indeed eating one of his recipes. I forgot to tell you, we'll only be eating the meal on Patreon. So if you're a subscriber, that's fine. You can join us at the end of the show. You'll find us waiting for you at the kitchen table. If you're not a subscriber, this is where the link comes up. There it is. It's so easy to become one of us. So lots more about Vincent Price and your book coming up in part 2. But, in part 1, I think we want to know more about you, Peter.
What would you like to know?
Well, I've been doing some research. There's not an enormous amount about you online, so I had to do some delving.
What kind of delving did you come up with?
I did a lot, Peter, I can tell you. For starters, can you tell us here why on one day a year you make Aztec. I do forgive you. Please forgive me, any Australians watching. I mean Anzac biscuits.
I like the idea of Aztec biscuits.
I think there ought to be Aztec biscuits.
No, Anzac biscuits are traditional in Australia. Is to commemorate Anzac Day, which is the campaign in Gallipoli that was a total tragedy because of the Brits. And we celebrate by making these biscuits, which often we make them for at school, or if you're in the Scouts or something, and you make them at home and you sell them off and you raise funds in little charity and everything. But we do them just all the time now, sort of thing, every year.
How are your Aztec biscuits?
Mine are very good because I got them. I use an old recipe which I've had ever since I was a kid. So.
Back in Oz.
Back in Oz, yes.
So the truth is coming out. I believe it was Perth.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. Yes.
Would it surprise you to know I've been to your fair city?
What made you go there?
I'm glad you asked. We didn't rehearse this bit, I can promise you. So I, as some of you may know, work with this man. And in 2010, we did an Australian and indeed New Zealand tour. Went to Perth.
What did you think of it?
Oh, we loved it. When were you last there?
Let me see. Let's see. Pandemic, 2 years before the pandemic.
Well, we were there in 2010. So you may be aware of a marvellous beachfront restaurant called Indiana.
No.
It's wonderful.
No.
It's idyllic.
I didn't know.
What about the Octagon Theatre?
Now the Octagon Theatre is really historically famous for me because I was very lucky in 1980 to actually see Vincent Price live on stage.
What? Doing what?
It was his one-man show, Diversions and Delights, where he played Oscar Wilde giving a performance in the Paris Theatre. And that was at the Octagon Theatre.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So we're both, one degree of separation away from the great Vincent Price, who was my favourite movie star, I have to say. Oh, how terrific. Was that the first time you saw him?
It's the first and only time I saw him because, I grew up in Australia. And it's quite a funny story, that one, because I was 17 at the time and I got it for my 17th birthday. My mum had bought a ticket for myself and my sister, Diane. And we went. Of course, my sister and I, we were quite young, and we hadn't been exposed to Oscar Wilde before that. So a lot of the jokes, a lot of the humour went over our heads at that time. I was there to see Vincent, you see. But I tell you what, it inspired me to go and start reading Oscar Wilde. And similarly, that was one of the reasons why I liked Vincent, is because through his films, I've got to go and read other things like Shakespeare, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Edgar Allan Poe. Those are all those literary collections that actually really helped me to actually, expand my horizon in terms of literature. Gosh.
When did you first encounter Vincent Price on screen?
Yes, it was it's on television in the Brady Bunch.
It often is with my guests. A lot of people discover their heroes, on TV. And what attracted you to him?
I loved his scary Uncle Vincent persona. He was like someone who was a bit of an outsider, a bit of a villain, but he wasn't a villain, especially in that episode. And we plays the archaeologist who, he's lost a fortune, or he's lost his claim to a treasure. And then the Brady Boys help him. But also he was in Get Smart and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Batman villain, Egghead. I mean, I kept seeing him all the time.
He would do anything. Almost anything.
Well, he did do it for his kids at the time. That's he wanted to, he was also, in the 60s he was doing it for the drive-in generation, and then basically he thought, oh, I want to do some stuff that my kids can watch, and so that's why he did those big shows, and I'm glad he did, because that was my first exposure to him.
But then for his own amusement, he went off and did these one-man shows, and I didn't know he did them all over the world.
He did them in America and Australia. He did 300 shows. No, is it 300 cities and 800 performances, something like that. It went on from 1977 through to 1980, and the only reason why he did the Australian side was because Coral Brown wanted a trip back home to Melbourne. And so So
this is his wife?
Yes, his third wife. And so she actually, hooked up with the manager in Australia. Yay, thank God she did, because she got to go home to Melbourne after many, many years of being abroad. But also Vincent got to actually come and perform to Australian audiences, which, yay.
Now, we know, well, much more Vincent Price coming up. But now back to you. And indeed, Perth, I held this up momentarily, and on the back is details of the extras on this DVD, still available, I believe, and there's a film I made while I was in Perth. Yes, so Perth features in this film. Can you have a look at it by all means, and you may be able to spot the name of my film. It's called Mincing Matilda. Sorry, but Perth and indeed the Octagon Theatre features in it, so there you are.
Oh, I have to watch this just to see the Octagon again. And
I think you must.
And do you do a rendition of Mincing Matilda in the tradition of Waltzing Matilda? Or?
I wish I could say I did, Peter, but no. I'd be lying. Peter, yes, just hold that up again. It's called Lord of the Mints. It's a very funny show. You came to the UK, I believe, by way of, was it Canada?
It was Canada, yes.
You see, what?
You have been doing your research.
I enjoy doing my research. Tell me, please, what were you doing in Canada?
Well, originally I was a television journalist in Western Australia in the goldfields, and I got an opportunity. You could get a work permit if you're under 25 to go to Canada, and I really, really wanted to go to Canada because I really wanted to go to New York. Yeah. That's where I really wanted to live.
It's just over the border. What part of Canada, please?
I was in Toronto, and it was a fantastic time.
What were you doing?
I had about 8 jobs. I was working at the Toronto Star as a sub-editor. I was working at the Superdome doing security. That was hilarious.
Why?
Well, I was actually doing security. So, you do the tickets and everything. And one of them was WrestleMania 10 or something. And I had to be the security guards for the wrestlers.
And you are, well, okay, I'll come right out with it. You're a man of reasonably short stature.
Yeah, I am. So
that's the joke.
You put me up against the Undertaker, and it just looked hilarious, and sort of thing. But I was stopping him. Don't go any past. Don't. No. But there was
did they take any notice of you?
They did actually. Yeah, they were very good. The fans were very good, sort of thing. So it was good. That was the year of Blonde Ambition tour and Wings. Paul McCartney's Wings going on tour. So I got to see all of those, which was great.
And you're a bit of a music fan, aren't you?
Little bit.
We're going to talk about that too. How come you fetch up in London, which I believe you're very, very fond of?
I'm very fond of because I was originally going to live in Canada, but it was the year of the brain drain. I don't know whether you know about that. Basically, when Hong Kong was being handed over to the Chinese, is that the employment tribunal there, basically, their cases quadrupled because basically the Canadian government said, oh, if you've got $50,000, you can come in, from Hong Kong. So, of course, my case, which, because I was trying to get a green card, or the Canadian equivalent of green card, sort of just went from there to under the bottom. And I thought, they said, oh, Pete, really, we can't really do it. So at that point, I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to come to London because I thought I'd just come and find what's happening here. And I got myself a great job.
Tell me what it was.
Do you know what it was?
I don't.
Good. I worked for a Chilean millionairess as her PA, it was like Devil Wears Prada all over again.
And a mix of that and Imelda Marcus, it sounds.
For like 5 years. She was absolutely wonderful, but I was her ghostwriter, basically. I was working for the equivalent of COSAS magazine, which is the Chilean version of Hello.
No.
So I was actually her PA. So what she would do, she would go out and interview celebrities, people like Princess Diana, Princess Stephanie of Monaco, Jeremy Irons, basically. And it was always at this one restaurant called Tante Claire. And so Tante Claire, which is where Gordon Ramsay studied, and he was actually there studying at the time.
Gosh.
And so we would have these lunches. She would interview them, and then it was my job to turn it into journalism.
Oh my goodness! So you were mixing with the mighty, big
on the side.
Yes, big stars. Oh. How long did this go on for?
I did it for 5 years, and then after that, I went into publishing, and I went and did a proper job as a sub-editor, as a senior sub-editor for all the TV listings magazines for the last 27 years.
And when did the Vincent Price project start?
I'd have to say that it really started in 2011.
Relatively recently. So he's been part of your life for a long time, since childhood.
Yeah.
But then you decided to actually do something with, presumably, your great knowledge of him.
I did. What happened was that the 2011 was obviously was Vincent's 100th anniversary, and in his hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, is a chap called Tom Stockman was hosting this 7-day event called the Vincentennial, which celebrated Vincent in various ways through screenings, Q&As, an art exhibition, and a fantastic exhibit of memorabilia. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to go and have a look. So I went all the way to St. Louis, Missouri, which I'd always wanted to do. And people were astonished that I'd actually come all the way. Yeah. But everyone was wonderful, everyone was lovely, and they just thought, wow, this band from Great Britain, wow, it's like, anyway, I got to meet Victoria Price.
Now, very important lady. Who is she?
That's Vincent's daughter, and she and her brother both look after their dad's legacy, and she does loads of presentations around the country, around the US, looking at her dad's legacy through presentations.
Has she written the foreword to your book, Peter?
She has indeed. Supper with the Stars.
Go.
Available for pre-order now.
It's published by, I've forgotten the name already because I forgot to write it down. Tell us the publisher.
Biddle's Publishing, published Biddle's Books.
And the price is?
It's going to be £30 unsigned, but we have 100 copies that will be signed by the authors and Victoria for £35.
Wonderful.
So, and that's for the UK only. Mm-hmm. If you're in the US, we have a separate link for people to actually pre-order it there because of the high extortionate cost of mailing it out. And if you're in Europe, it's great if somebody they just email me their interest and then I can work out a price.
We're going to put some of these details on the Little Did You Know page, Peter. Now, what developed was Vincent Price Legacy UK. Full of interesting stuff, I have to say. I have been on there. Let's talk about, first of all, there's Vincent's recipes on there. He did a cooking show in this country, which I had forgotten. It's called Cooking Price-Wise, and it was done in 1971. Have you seen it?
I have seen all 6 episodes. And we have got plans. There are plans for us to actually put it out on Blu-ray/DVD.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
But it's been a big battle trying to secure the rights to it because it's a long journey. But we hope to do it because we've got loads of extras we want to put on there, and I'm sure it'll do well.
It would be marvellous to see him in that after over 40. No, it's exactly 40 years, isn't it?
71.
1971. Yeah. Oh my
almost
goodness.
Yeah.
And what's he like in the programme?
It's hilarious. It was shot in Birmingham. And it's shot on this fantastic 70s Formica sort of set, and he does it all. Does each episode, which is 24 minutes long, in one take.
What a pro.
It is amazing. And he'll cook a 3-course meal in one take. But everything is all sort of set and set aside and prepped and everything. And there's some couple of fantastic moments where one episode, I think it's in the cheese episode, he basically has two plates that he has to take out the oven, but he's got nowhere to put them, so he just puts them on the floor and then puts it back. It's way before, like the editing that we see in like things like Nigella and Jamie Oliver and all the other cooking programs we have now.
Well, you don't even see it on Saturday Kitchen Live. I just want to mention, just before we take a break, about the tours, which sound absolutely wonderful. You go around not only the country, but to other countries as well, looking for the locations of Vincent Price films.
Yes.
The one I was particularly interested in was a little-known Vincent Price film called The Last Man on Earth, which was shot in Rome.
It was indeed, yes. It's like it's shot in EUR. Now, I'm terrible at actually pronouncing Italian, but it was the area that was built by Mussolini in the 30s, and it has that sort of like futuristic sort of, empire look.
Yes.
And it was perfect for the film, for Last Man on Earth, because it does look a little bit sort of, dystopian in a way.
How did you find the locations?
Because I was always obsessed by that one photo of Vincent on the steps, which was actually in Dennis Gifford's book when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with it. And I thought, I've got to go one of these days. And of course, the film is the area has also been used in a lot of Italian films. So like Fellini used it in El Boccio. It's the 3 films.
Which one shall we have?
Is
it called Boccaccio?
It's not Boccaccio. It's the one with the 3 stories where I think it's Anita Ekberg or something as becomes a giant woman, and it's also in a couple of other Italian sort of films.
Everyone is now screaming out the title.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I saw what you'd put up on the site, and it made me immediately want to go to Rome and have a look at these locations as well. We're going to be talking about the locations of some of Vincent's films in this country, but after the break. We're going to have a look at a trailer for a Peccadillo release now. It's a new release, and it's causing a bit of a stir. It's called Sweetheart. It was released to cinemas earlier this month. Have a look at this. It's a lovely comedy shot in Dorset. Please join us again in a couple of minutes.
Oh, cows! You do realise that the breeding of cows is like the #1 cause of deforestation?
What? I don't like the spelling of your name.
Right, I'm gonna go and check us in. Are you coming?
Why do you guys all just look the same?
What's the Wi-Fi code?
There isn't any Wi-Fi.
I was perfectly fine at home, but Mum insisted.
You spend all your money.
Where's my dead Jesus jumper?
You can be gay and,
Here we go.
look like a girl.
Why can't I just do what I want to do?
Because it changes every 5 minutes. That's why. Like your hat?
Like normal.
Thanks. I'm Isla, by the way.
AJ. They all look so happy, like they exist in some parallel universe.
What is wrong with you?
I'm 17, everything's wrong with me.
I've never seen anyone wear so many clothes to the beach.
Girls like you always have boyfriends.
That's like me.
Why can't you just say it? Say what?
AJ, please. AJ.
AJ, wait!
I knew you'd ruin this holiday for everyone. You always do.
Life is not fun all the time.
I like you a lot.
This is your holiday too, You're allowed to enjoy yourself.
Sometimes I have no idea who I am.
That's the thing about being on holiday. You get to be whoever you want to be.
All I know is things are different now.
What's the plan and what are you thinking of doing?
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
There's a charity out there you can volunteer. You knit jumpers for elephants.
Biderios, it's David McGillivray here on Little Did You Know. That was a trailer for Sweetheart, which is the first film from Marley Morrison. It's already won an award, the Audience Award, at the Glasgow Film Festival. I'm here with my special guest, Peter Fuller. He's got a book coming out. You knew what to do when I said that, Peter. Well done. What's it called, Peter?
Supper with the Stars.
Oh, what's that about?
It's 52 recipes from Vincent's legendary co-stars of Hollywood cinema and British greats. There's lots of there's a couple of horror legends like Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney in there. And there's Tallulah Bankhead. There's loads of fantastic actresses and actors over the past. And they're all paired with 52 of his own recipes from his iconic cookbooks.
Well, in the break, we decided to make one of Vincent Price's recipes. We are actually going to go into the kitchen now because Peter hasn't quite finished preparing it. Can you just tell us which recipe this is, Peter, that we decided to enjoy?
Okay, so I was flipping through whilst you were chatting, and I thought to myself, what can we make in under 20 minutes?
Yes.
And I've got a great idea. Guacamole and a salad.
Oh, lovely. Would you like to go into the kitchen, Peter, and I'll follow you in there?
Okay, see you in a minute.
Oh, this is tremendously exciting. We don't normally do stuff like this. This is where you get to see my room. And what's this behind me? I can only apologise, but it's a birthday present I got. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll just get my fingers out of the way of the camera because you don't want to see those. Just going into the hall here. And what's this above my head? Ah, yes, when I moved here, I put that up as well. I believe it's called Marking Your Territory. Oh, Peter, you're already at the counter. Doing what, may I ask?
Well, I've just looked up this recipe in here in that Supper with the Stars.
Ah, yes.
And I'm going to do Vincent's guacamole. Now, everybody usually at home just goes out and gets a guacamole ready-made, but actually it's quite a lot of fun to make. Vincent, however, uses non-traditional ingredients.
Ooh, what are they?
Okay, so I'm just going to get the guacamole out of the fridge. Let's go over here. Oh, okay, so just as Vincent used to do in Cooking Price-wise, I've done a few things in advance.
Isn't this fun?
What we have is I've mashed up 2 avocados.
Oh, are those the stones still in there?
Yes.
Why?
If you leave them in there, it stops the guacamole from discolouring.
Didn't know
go
that.
brown.
Didn't know that.
So you only take them out when you're actually ready to serve.
Okay, what else is in there?
And then what we've got over here is what we're going to mix it with is we have a collection of tomatoes, which have been peeled and seeded and chopped. We've got the mystery ingredient, which Vincent uses, mayonnaise, and the other mystery ingredient, which he uses, Worcestershire sauce, as well as some traditional things like cayenne pepper, garlic, and lemon juice. There we go.
Do you need to do some...
I'm going to mix it all together.
Oh, would you please? And just like Saturday Kitchen Live, I'm going to try and distract you by talking about Vincent Price. Can you cope with that, Peter?
I can cope with that. I can multitask.
How marvellous. Because I want to know more about your Witchfinder General tour, because I believe that goes to a town I've always wanted to visit. You'll know the pronunciation of it. Is it Lavenham or Lavenham?
Lavenham.
It's a beautiful town.
It's fantastic. I mean, we've been there quite several times now. I've taken like tour groups out there because the witch burning scenes were actually filmed out there, and it's just a great place because it's one of the few places which is still so of its period, and it's never been built up or destroyed or anything.
So this is 17th century?
I believe it is, yes,
Yeah.
it is. So
And the witch was burned at the beginning of the film, I believe. What, in the town square?
it happens later on in the film, because I think there's the period where Sarah has actually gone to Lavenham to hide out, and of course she doesn't know that Vince Price's witchfinder is actually also there, and that's when they do the burning scene. I think her name was Elizabeth, was the witch. But interestingly is that on one of my tour groups, I had a chap called Chris, and he was one of the little boys in the Market Square shop.
No.
His father worked for the Air Force, and he took pictures, behind the scenes pictures, which he showed us one day on one of my legacy tours.
I've got to go to this town and have a look round, haven't I, Peter?
And also nearby, you've got a few other places that you can go to as well. So you've got Kentwell Hall. That is that's the ducking scene, where the witches are they've been trialed and put into the ducking the water, and also nearby Curtsey, which is the opening scene of the witch being hung in a field.
Are you going to do this tour again?
We are. We're hopefully, once everything goes back to normal. You know, we had actually planned, literally in 2020, we'd actually had something all planned, but we had to wait for COVID to disappear.
As soon as you go back there, Peter, I'm your man. But you are doing another tour. Oh, look.
So I've mixed all that together, and that is our first dish, which we'll have later on.
Marvellous. Shall we move on?
We can move on. One thing I'd suggest as well is that Vincent says, we like it nice and crunchy, but in the book, he also says, if you want it really creamy, you put it in a blender for 5 minutes, and it becomes super, super creamy.
Next time, I think. Peter, while you're preparing whatever you're going to do next from Vincent Price's recipe, let me just mention that you are doing another tour, and that's with regard to Vincent's, one of his most popular films, Theatre of Blood.
Yes, that'll be on October the 24th.
Oh, the day before your book is published.
Supper with the Stars.
How marvellous. Are there still places on the Theatre of Blood tour?
No, unfortunately, it's sold out.
It's one of your most popular, isn't it?
Yes, every year I get invited by the London weekend London Month of the Dead, and it always sells out because it's a bit of a unique tour, because what
All
I
over
do,
London.
I actually practically reenact the entire Theatre of Blood in Kensal Green Cemetery. But I sort of also give you a lot of history about Kensal Green at the same time, and including some of its notable burials.
Of course. Let's move on to the next stage of Vincent Price's recipe, Peter.
Right, so the next one I'm going to look up, I decided we'd do a salad, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a light mixed green salad. Page 57. There's over 100 recipes in this book, so they're all different, but anybody, if you're a novice or a kitchen adventurous alike,
anyone
you will be able to do them.
How marvellous.
So we're going to go over on this side now. So we're going to do a mixed green salad.
Oh, splendid.
So what I've done...
What have you got?
Well, what I've done in advance is I've mixed up some romaine lettuce hearts and some spinach. Now, the recipe calls for something called escarole, which is an Italian, often used in Italian cooking. It's not very widely available unless you go to sort of bespoke sort of market stalls.
So you've used?
I've used spinach,
Aye.
little baby spinach, which is really nice. It gives it a nice crunch.
What goes on there?
Then we've actually sliced up some cucumber, just like little cucumber slices. And then we have the dressing. Now the dressing is actually what makes this. Now in this we have got red wine vinegar, some lemon juice, and some Coleman's dry mustard, and some black pepper. It's really lovely. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely little thing.
That's going on the salad now?
Yes, it's going to go on the salad now. We'll do all of that. And then to top it off,
yes,
we have some homemade croutons, which is in the book. Just 2 slices of day-old bread and You basically pop it in the frying pan with a whole garlic, okay, don't chop it up, and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and they become really lovely and crispy and flavoursome. And then you just pop them onto the salad, and then there we go.
It's ready.
Simple salad.
Oh, marvellous. Peter, Vincent Price film is the one to see before we die?
Oh, it has to be Theatre of Blood.
Why?
Well, I think he says it's his favourite funny film, but also it's a film which actually bookends his career as a horror actor, because he started out in 1953 in House of Wax, playing an avenged, anti-hero, and in 1973 he plays a person who's out where fate has actually dealt a terrible blow for him, and he's out for revenge as well. But also in this one, it's a great black comedy satire because of the fantastic script, because it really, really makes fun of the rarefied world of the British theatre at the time. It
lives on, doesn't it? There's been a stage version as well. I bet you saw that.
Twice. Jim Broadbent was playing the Vincent's role.
In your view, how did Jim compare to the great Vince?
Oh, you can't compare them, because it's a stage performance and each actor brings their own to the part.
Nicely put, Peter. Is our meal ready?
It is indeed. All we need to do is put it on the table.
Oh, how marvellous. While you're doing that, I'm just going to remind everyone that we'll be eating this meal on Patreon. Now, we haven't rehearsed this. I don't know what it's like. I haven't even seen the recipe, but look, there it is. And I can't wait. Why don't you sit down there, Peter, because I want to know more about Vincent Price. I can tell you. There he is. What is the most amazing thing that's ever happened on a Vincent Price tour? I didn't prime you with that question.
No, but there's so many things.
Go on.
What the most surprising thing? I think one of the most surprising things is a couple of years ago, I think 2017, we went out to Spain, to Madrid, and we met up with Paul Nash's son, Sergio Molina.
You're going to have to tell us who was Paul Nash.
Paul Nash was a famous Spanish horror actor, best known for playing the Wolfman in a whole series of films, and as well as other stuff. He had an immense career. He's one of Spain's biggest horror stars, actually. And it was great to go out and visit some of the film locations that was used in some of his films.
The titles of which include...
Oh, those ones, don't ask me, because they're all in Spanish and I'm not very good. But one of them was Four Musketeers. Which is not his film, but The Four Musketeers was Richard Lester's film that was shot there as well.
So as I say, you go all over the world.
I do, yes. I mean, wherever it takes me. I mean, we were talking about earlier about the Vincentennial, is when I met Victoria, is that I said to her, I'd love to be able to replicate the Vincentennial in UK. So in 2015, I actually did that. I did a 5-day event where basically I was doing film screenings and different events. We had a breakfast at Harrods, because it features in one of his books, cookbooks, but also did the film location tours for Witchfinder General, Theatre of Blood, and also Cry of the Banshee. And they proved so popular that that's where we started extending that and started doing it not only in the UK, but also in Europe and and in the US.
And it has been a huge success. As you said, no more room on your Theatre of Blood tour. How marvellous. And this has all happened in a very short time, hasn't it?
Yes, since 2015, I think you could say.
You're, as I mentioned in my introduction, a hell of an adventurer as well. You go off all over the place, going to all sorts of marvellous places, and we're going to talk about those on Patreon. But right now, earlier, Peter, we talked about a fine actor, Jim Broadbent, who, as you say, couldn't be compared with the great Vincent Price. But is there an equivalent of Vincent Price on our screens in 2021? Who comes closest?
Oh, that's a very difficult question because you have to consider the age. Are we talking about young Vincent or old Vincent? You know, mature Vincent. You know, like if, for example, like I thought Tom Hiddleston was fantastic in Crimson Peak, but he's no Vincent Price. But he's gone on to do some fantastic stuff. But there are so many people out there. I mean, Richard E. Grant. You know, I'd like to see more of him doing, you know, more sort of genre-based stuff. It would be good.
Yes, if there's a Vincent Price biopic, he surely ought to be up for the lead.
You just have to affect a bit of an American accent sometimes.
Can you do a Vincent Price impersonation, Peter?
Oh, yeah. No, not really.
Oh, no. Well, my guest David Del Valle did do one. Do you know David?
I do know David very well. We met at the Vincentennial in St. Louis, Missouri. So
David's a character, isn't he?
He's a character, and he really knows his stuff, and he really has got his finger on the pulse of like classic old horror. Yeah.
Well, he knows you as well. Tell me, Peter, what's the scariest thing Vincent Price ever did on screen? Or perhaps we'll say, what did he do that most frightened you as a child?
Okay, so what most frightened me as a child, you won't...
I won't believe.
You won't believe. The Haunted Palace.
Another little-known film.
1963, which was the first cinematic adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft story. It was the case of Charles Dexter Ward. It was the scene where he basically goes to, dare I say it, sexually assault his wife, Deborah Paget, but he's possessed as Joseph Kerwin. So I thought that was really strong. And I saw that when I was quite young, about 12 or 13, and I did not like it. I did not like to see that's my Vincent actually doing that to a woman. That really, really horrified me.
We've got a book launch coming up, Peter. It's your book, Supper with the Stars, and it's being held at a venue I know very well, the Phoenix Arts Club. It's happening on October the 25th. Can we get tickets?
Tickets are available. Yes, please do come along. It's going to be a show, so we are showing clips of Vincent's culinary endeavours on TV that nobody's ever seen.
So is that from that series I mentioned earlier?
I can't say.
Ooh.
But there'll be it'll be great to see that. So come along, and also you can either pre-order the book through the website, through the Phoenix Arts Club website, or you could actually just get the book on the night. So.
And will there be a special guest appearance zooming in from Victoria Price?
Yes, Victoria's graciously going to be there on Zoom to actually give us a few little personal anecdotes about Vince, about a dad and his culinary endeavours at home.
Lovely. Peter, we want to talk about what you've got coming up next. I believe there may be an event you're involved in on the night before Halloween.
Yes, it looks like I shall be reading ghost stories at the King and Queen.
Where's that?
That's in Foley Street in Fitzrovia. Stay tuned. This is a brand new news thing, so...
In fact, he just heard about this while we were preparing dinner. Oh, topical or what? Okay, more details about that ere long. We're coming to the point where we have to wind up.
Oh.
What a shame. I told you the time would fly.
There's so much more to tell you.
Well, we can talk further on Patreon as well as enjoying this meal you've just thrown together in a matter of minutes. You can't smell this, but I can, and my mouth is watering. So we're going to do this on Patreon. We're going to wind up here, but if you're a subscriber, please join us now. You'll find us waiting for you. If your mouth is watering as well and you're not a Patreon subscriber, there's the link again. It's so easy to become one of us, and it costs as little as £1, I'm told. Peter, thank you for joining us in my kitchen.
Thank you for having me.
It's been my utter pleasure.
I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the book launch.
Yes, please. October the 25th at the Phoenix Arts Club. Before then, would you mind joining me again next week on Little Did You Know? My guest will be a man called Robert Feinstein. Now, I first interviewed him in 2007. And now I want everybody here on Little Did You Know to know his story as well, because it is remarkable. He was born blind. We're going to join him in New York via the magic of Zoom. And I have a feeling that his story is going to completely change your attitude to sexuality. That's all I'm saying. Join me then. Until then, this is David McGillivray and my guest, Peter Fuller, saying mwah.
Goodbye.
Bye.